Yeah. All right. The possibility of the ULA, and with that, I must say that we have issued, and I've signed many statements to say that the ULA will work with any organization that legally works towards self-determination or secession. With that said, because of that statement, the possibility of the ULA and CapeXit working together is zero. Now, let me say again what the statement said. The ULA will work with any organization that legally works towards secession. So there are two caveats in that: legal and works towards. Now, the CapeXit is not doing one of the two.
Okay.
Why do I say that? Very simple. Firstly, it's not legal, because by bumping up figures that it makes you look better is illegal. And it's also illegal in terms of international law on secession. Secondly, works towards absolutely means exactly what it says. You've got to work towards secession. Now, I've asked the question a million times, what have they done in terms of the legal process of secession? Nothing. So there's your answer. That's the naked truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Clive, I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but as Hein said, on this show we talk about the naked truth, so it's just the way it is. But listen,
that's the way it is.
Absolutely. Please do get in touch with Valerie. She is very, very keen to get together with our members, and the one thing that we really want to do. The truth is that we need to get to our 2 million mandate. She is one of the hardest workers, using Hein's words, to get there. And so she would love to talk to people who are interested in participating in that. All right, Clive?
Okay, great, thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Clive.
Okay.
So, Hein, thank you very much. Yeah, it's great to have you on the talk this evening. If anybody has any questions for Hein, he's obliged to tell the truth, or the whole truth and nothing but the truth on the show this evening. So please go ahead and raise your hand. We will add you to the channel, and you can talk with our president, Hein Marks. Hein, do you have anything that you'd like to comment on at this point in time? Just to give us an update on where we're at.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the naked truth. The ULA, we as the EXCO people might think, and I in fact have heard, Hein, but we don't hear anything from you guys. What's happening with the process? Let me assure everybody, we are working all as the absolute individuals, as volunteers, including that's Brett and everybody. As volunteers, we work every day towards secession. Every day. It doesn't stop. Today, I've spent so much time on this again, it's unbelievable. My business, I didn't think that a business can talk. My business is already waking me at night and say, hey, we need you. So I want to assure people, please, don't think that because you don't hear anything from us, that we're not doing anything. We are diligently every day working towards the solutions. And there's a lot of things we've got to do, which I don't want to go into at this stage, but we are working towards the solution. Why? Because there are people, organizations, call it whatever you want to, that are doing their utmost to make it as difficult as possible for us. Unbelievable. So, but yeah, I'm here. I'm open to any questions. Please, you can ask me anything. You can even ask me money. I don't have, but you can ask me, and I can tell you I don't have, but you can ask me anything.
Fantastic. Thanks. It's always lovely to talk to Hein. He really is a very transparent person, and the entire process is very transparent. Okay, just before I have my own comment here, Richard, thank you very much for joining the channel. If you just press your speaker button again, you'll be able to talk to Hein. Good evening.
Good evening. I just wanted to find out, is there some sort of constitution that's available for us to read and I only saw a couple of things on the website, and there were one or two concerning points for me. So I don't know, where does one give input regarding that sort of thing?
Richard, firstly, most of the information is on the website, quite simply because international law says everything that you do and everything that you plan to do must be made public. Now, that includes everything that we do. At this stage, it does not include the Constitution, quite simply because we haven't put out a new Constitution for no other reason, exactly the same reason why we don't just put an interim government there, which, by the way, is also part of international law. Why? Quite simply because we don't have 50% plus one of the people's mandates, which means if we put an interim government there, or alternatively a constitution, they can say, but who are you to tell us what the constitution will be? Or alternatively, who are you as the, in this case, minority of the group to put an interim government there? That's the reason why we have, with the very serious possibility of a civil war in South Africa, a so-called emergency interim government. So that, I think, answers your question. Everything is there, except a constitution, because we can't put it there for that reason, because we do not have the majority mandates.
What I more meant was, let's say you do get the 51. So the way I understand it is, you get the 2 million people to support, they put out a referendum, and you get 51% of the vote. When that does happen, obviously there's got to be this whole area, and I'm sure it becomes very complex. But currently we've got a South African constitution, the United States has a constitution, you get the 51%, what are we in for? Like, okay, what sort of liberties do we have that we don't have now? You know, like, who discusses all of this that's going to go forward?
Okay, firstly, it's not 51%, it's 50% plus one vote. Because 1% in our case means, 20,000 votes. So it's 50% plus one vote. That's a majority. What do you get? You get, at this stage, you get the current constitution, which will then automatically, as quickly as possible, be changed with the majority to a new constitution. Meaning you will have the current legal system in place until you have a genuine democratic new constitution.
So with people having their vote on what actually goes into the constitution? Or...
No, you can't. No, you can't get people to vote in what goes into a constitution, because the person that doesn't know a doctor or a pilot or a whatever you want to call it is not a legal person. So it's not a vote. It's rather a matter of the majority then knows that it was done under the auspices of the majority. But it's still a legal process. So it's legal experts that will do it.
Let's say some people want the death penalty and some people don't. Who decides that? Is what I'm asking.
the executive in the interim government, or in this, and then it will be the interim government. Then it won't be a emergency interim government anymore. The majority in the interim government with the legal advice of the people. But then again, for instance, we are already saying that we stand for the death penalty. This is all on the website.
Yeah.
So we are already making very clear how we think.
Okay.
But we don't say it must be like that. We say this is how we think it should be.
Okay. So just as an example, one of the things I saw on the website was that there's the death penalty for, all the views are for murderers, rapists, and then it went on to say for drug dealers and for treasonous people.
Yeah.
And that sounds all good and well. And personally, I probably agree with the first two. But now you have the death penalty for drug dealers. And then you end up with a situation where who defines and who's dictating what are drugs. So now you've got a government that's just, you're sort of back at square one in a situation where they say, okay, well, ivermectin is a banned substance or a drug. You find with that thing, you get the death penalty.
No, Richard, with all respect, I think we all know what we talk about if we talk about drugs here. We talk about basically scheduled drugs on the one hand, or alternatively, because ivermectin is a Schedule 1 medicine, 1. So it's not a drug. If you want to use that argument, you can say that a disprin is a drug as well, because it falls under that.
Same could have been said for cannabis, where it was illegal throughout the world for what, I don't even know how many decades, and now all of a sudden it's used for medicine.
Cannabis to smoke is considered, with all the genuine expertise and experience, as a drug. So you said that you don't agree with death penalty for drug dealers. A drug dealer that causes the death and destruction of families and death of many, many people, in our eyes, deserves the death penalty, because he's doing it for only one reason, nothing else other than self-financial gain.
Then I could give an opposing view that a drug dealer doesn't cause the death of anyone, because no one is forced to take the drugs. It's the freedom of choice. I'm looking at it from a libertarian point of view now, because it says,
Richard,
also on the website, you're a
we can have different views of everything and anything in life. We want to have a community where people are genuinely free. People don't have to worry that their children will be fed drugs at school or in play parks or in cinemas or wherever. A drug dealer is doing it knowingly, using current law, knowingly that he will destroy people's lives for self-gain. It's as simple as that. There's no argument against that. I actually can't believe that you said that you can argue against it. You can't.
I don't know. The thing is, as soon as governments start dictating to people what they can and can't do, and your argument might be good and the intentions behind it are good, but you're giving someone a power where they can dictate to other people now, or the entire country, what substances they can and can't take, what you can and can't sell. And
Richard, so what you are saying, because you use the word, you're saying it from a libertarian kind of way. A libertarian kind of way is that you don't want any laws. Well, good luck for that country that's got no laws. So you can drive at 250 kilometers per hour with a car that should actually not even be on the road. So he's putting everybody's life in danger because the government dictates to him that he may not drive it, in our case. You're saying that people can sell drugs because they may not dictate to other people. I've got a surprise for you. People are human. A lot of people does not have the ability to discern between right and wrong. In the human psyche, there are people that are drawn to be easier addicted to things. For instance, to Coke, to coffee. But that doesn't make any difference because it doesn't hurt them. But also to drugs.
Okay, let me ask you this then. What's your view on mask mandates and vaccine mandates, etc., that we're sitting
Very
now?
simple. Exactly the same that my mandate, my view is at the moment in my business. I don't believe in it because it hasn't been proved. The government has been sued to show the so-called existence of COVID, the virus, and they ignore it. So I don't believe in it, and I don't do it. And I walked out of a business today again because I refused to wear a mask.
Mhm. So what I'm getting at is you don't want to end up in a situation like this again where the government is the one telling people what is right and wrong. Because now the government's saying it's wrong. You're not allowed to
I'm
go
totally with you.
and wear a mask.
I'm totally with,
So,
because if you look
so
at
you've
what
got to
is
be
happening in South
extremely
Africa,
careful of the laws that you impose to protect other people. Because, like, let's say you get the right person in power and the intentions are good. Sooner or later, you're going to get the wrong person there. Because this is happening throughout history constantly since the beginning of time, and we end up in the same place again.
but Richard, what you're saying now is that to prevent that, we should actually all go and commit suicide. Because the reality is, you and me and nobody of us has got the power or the influence to influence the rest of humanity of what they will do, right or wrong. I can only influence while I'm alive, and I can only influence within the sphere of my influence people. That's all. I can't do it outside of that.
But if you set up a governing system where it's not possible for someone to gain that kind of power, then you would break that
Well,
cycle.
the idea is to set it up like that, but the reality is there is no way in the world that you can actually do it. I mean, we've heard for how many years that we've got the best constitution in the world. I can tell you now it's not the best constitution in the world. I can
No,
tell
I
you
don't
now
believe
that
that
the
at all.
American constitution is better than ours.
Yeah.
And what is happening in America? A total political chaos.
Mm. Too much government power again. Although they are faring a heck of a lot better than the rest of the West.
If I can just absolutely, Richard, and if I can just add to what Hein is saying, and Hein, please correct me if I'm on the wrong track here. But Richard, you do need somebody to make decisions and somebody to put the laws into place. Now, bear in mind that the country is divided into separate states and communities, and those states and communities can be completely autonomous. So if there is a law that says you're not allowed to have disciplines, and one of the states has a referendum within that state or community and decide, no, this is nonsense, we should have, disciplines, I'm just using that as a silly example, then that can be put into place in that community or in that state, because the people are completely free and they can decide for themselves. And
Yes.
any law can be vetoed. Any civil servant, whether it be a ward representative or the prime minister or the president himself, can be put out of power through a veto.
Yep. You're totally right, Britt. Absolutely. Except you made one word mistake. You said all the areas can have independence. No, they will have.
All right.
Because that's the way we've set up the system.
Smaller government, the better.
Absolutely.
Based very much, Richard, on that system. in Switzerland, which is, one of the most successful. Somebody's feedback on somebody's line. Yeah, so that's how it's based. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's just a bit of static and echo. But yeah, so basically my general view, obviously it's complicated and I'm going to have different views on a lot of different topics, but if a government is there basically only to ensure the liberties of its citizens and that citizens don't infringe one another's liberties, then that would work for me.
Well,
So
that's exactly
this guy can't murder me or steal my things or endanger me or whatever. But if I want to, like, I just want to set the record straight. Yeah, I've never taken drugs or anything in my entire life, and I never will. But I'm just trying to make a point. Like,
Understood.
if that guy decides he wants to take this or that substance, like, I feel like you're just going down. And this is just one stupid example. I can probably come up with anything else. Like, you have to take this vaccine because I know what's better for your health than what you do. Like, you start going down that route, and then again you end up here eventually. This is the only thing that I'm concerned about.
100%. So let me put this scenario, Hein, if I may. Let's say that the UCS was in existence. We had seceded before 2020, and suddenly the world was flooded with this so-called COVID thing. What would the approach of the interim government or the central government, which really just caters for a handful of things in government matters, what would the approach have been in the UCS towards this entire COVID pandemic?
Brett, that's actually a fantastic question. I'm glad you asked that question, because exactly at the time when COVID hit South Africa, so-called, and Ramaphosa said it's lockdown and all of this nonsense. Then, because he's not with us anymore, attorney or one of the attorneys of the ULA sat in my house and he asked me, he said, Hein, if we were independent now, what would you theoretically have done if you were the president of the country? Would you have had a lockdown? And I said, Donnie, there is no way. And this is right that day that they declared this. I said, there's no way that I would have a lockdown to kill the economy because there's a so-called virus that we don't know anything about. Do I have to say anything more about it? That's my answer, because that's a genuine thing that happened. And
Absolutely.
then, of course, if you jump 2 years later, you ask yourself the question, is it really about COVID or is it about world domination?
Yeah, I think most of us know that it's got very little to do with our health.
Exactly. But I wanted to ask Richard a quick question. He said all of this, but he never said that he didn't sell or deal in drugs. Did you ever, Richard?
No. Oh,
I'm just asking because you were fighting so vehemently for it.
No, I'm speaking out of principle here. I'm making examples. My point would be, okay, so what would you do so that you wouldn't be able to make the decision at all, so that people couldn't have a lockdown? Because my point is, yes, you wouldn't do it because obviously it's a stupid thing to do. But someone assassinates you and buys out the next guy, and etc., and he would have done it. So
well, that's what I told you earlier.
So that it's not possible to do it.
Well, that's what I told you earlier. We can only have influence on what we have influence on. We can't influence everything every time, all the time. And if we don't like that, well, then we've all got to commit suicide. The reality is we can only try our utmost I can tell you now exactly what the fathers of the American Constitution did in 1776 when they tried to have the best constitution for their people. The reality is it's totally being raped, especially the past 2 years. We can only do our best with the knowledge and the experience of what's happening, not only in South Africa, but in the world. Knowing all these things, it gives us just more insight in not to make the same mistakes. But I can guarantee you, nothing is forever. Nothing is forever.
Mm. And this, I just heard this somewhere. I have no idea if it's true, but the state of disaster that we're currently in, I somewhere read that legally was only allowed for 3 months. I don't know if you know anything about that.
You're totally right. No, you are totally right. There is
So
no
everything
legal
after that
basis that they
is,
can push this on.
it's all just a huge fallacy, basically.
Yes, but perhaps you've heard the saying, the person with the biggest gun has got the biggest mouth. Well, that's the case in any government's situation most of the time. They've got the biggest guns, they've got the police and the army and everything behind them, so they can actually make you do whatever they want to. That's why they do these things. They are criminals. It's a very, very short and simple thing.
No. Yeah, I mean, you've obviously got to think about this kind of thing so that you don't end up in the same situation again, because getting this succession or secession, actually pulling it off, if it does happen, would be quite miraculous. So
No.
you don't, you don't want to end up in, if you do it, you get it right, you want to do it properly.
Tell me, Richard, do you know how many countries there are currently in the world?
I think it's approximately 180 something.
No, you're wrong, because that's the whole point. You said if we can get it right miraculously. Miracle is exactly what it means. It's a miracle. It's virtually impossible. Not virtually, it is impossible humanly seen. So what you're saying, humanly, it's impossible to get secession. Well, I've got a surprise for you.
No, I don't think it's
193 countries
impossible.
have already seceded successfully.
I didn't. Okay, maybe I used the wrong term. I just meant it's very difficult. It's not easy.
Well, you know what the most difficult part of it is? The most difficult part of secession is exactly why we have this discussion tonight, is to make people understand. We don't want your money. We don't want anything. Just give your mandate that we can get freedom. Funny enough, it's for the people that we want to do it, is to convince them. That is the most difficult part. Because from a legal point of view, it's 100% clear what you can and can't do. And yes, 193 countries have already successfully seceded. Funny enough, in our case, in the southern part of Africa, you've got Namibia that successfully seceded, right next door to us. So why can't we do it? They were totally 100% part of South Africa. They're not part of us anymore. Up in Africa, there are how many countries? The last one that actually successfully seceded was South Sudan away from Sudan. It's easy. The legal process is the easy part. The difficult part is to convince the people that there's nobody trying to do anything other than get their freedom for them as well. Sad, but true.
Sad but true. And Richard, I hope we answering your questions. I'm letting it go on a little bit because I don't see anybody else wanting to put their hands up. And you're asking some very sensible questions, and the discussion is going in a very reasonable direction. So thank you so much for that. It is just so true what Heine is saying, and we are absolutely looking for help. In any help we can get to get the word out there, to get the mandates registered. We've got a guy, Obed, I think he is on our call this evening. He actually gets in his truck from time to time and travels through the Cape with his wife, talking to people, registering mandates, and he's having a whale of a time. What we don't need is people telling us what they think is the right thing to do and how we should do it. What we are looking for is people that will actually climb in and do it, because I'm going to use Hein's words again. I've plagiarized his words, and I'm sorry for that, but tough luck. The ULA cannot secede for us without us. We are the ULA. We are the people that are going to secede and form a new country. We can't do it without the people. So we are looking for a lot of help there, Richard. So I hope you're more I wouldn't say convinced, because we're not trying to sell anything. We're not trying to convince anybody of everything. But I hope it's more clear to you what we are aiming for and trying to do, and that you will help us to spread the word.
I already have.
Wonderful, thank you. That's great. We've got 9 million souls who are at stake here, minorities in South Africa. Compared to the I don't know how many million of the other ethnic groups, and for every person that goes out and registers or talks to somebody and registers their mandate, it's a step closer for us to have the secession and have a really beautiful world, peaceful and prosperous, that we can live in.
Where does the 2 million figure come from? I saw someone mentioned earlier, I think it was CapeXit or something. I actually came across their website as well, and they said 1.6.
Richard, very simple. In terms of, if you look at our website and you look at the letter that I've sent to Ramaphosa in February 2019, the total letter is, I think, 38 pages long. But the physical letter was signed by myself and the Vice President of the ULA on page number 21, I think. The rest are all just the references of what was said factually in the letter, but also most of it are all the voting districts mentioned by number that we are organizing for secession. So where does the 2 million come from? The 2 million is actually the figure where all the voters in those districts are approximately 4 million, but it's actually a bit less than 4 million. Divide by 2 plus 1 gives you 1.9 odd million votes, and we should just make it a round figure, make it 2 million votes. That's where it came from. Ask yourself the question rather, where does CapeXit's 1.6 million come from? I don't know.
Okay.
But there I've given you not only where it came from, I've also given you the exact voting district numbers in that letter, which is on our website, where you can see and then go to the IEC's figures to see the exact figures of each voting district. And remember, we're not talking about 2021 voting districts. We're talking about 2011 IEC figures, because that's when we started the process. They can't change the goalposts all the time, because luckily law doesn't work like that.
So who actually proceeds to go ahead and supply this referendum? Is it the courts? Is it the current government?
What do you mean? Supply you mean are paying for the referendum?
Who initiates the process? You get the 2 million
very simple.
people, and
the moment that we have the majority mandates, call it 2 million, but it's actually a bit less. But call it 2 million. The moment we have it, we then send a letter by the sheriff of the court to the president, all according to international law on secession, and we then, in terms of international law, demand a referendum. That's not what we say we want. That's what international law says they've got to give us. Now, the next question is, you will say, but they won't give it to us. Yes, we know they won't give it to us. You're right. They won't. So we will send them another letter and another one and another one. We can decide ourselves how long and how many times we want to send letters. And if they blatantly just refuse to even ignore anything, which is the way that they act, well, very simple. In terms of international law, we just basically, exactly the same as Rhodesia, declare a unilateral declaration of independence according to international law.
Mm.
You can't put your head in the sand and think that things will go away. It doesn't work like that. You can not answer your door for 2 or 3 times or 4 times, whatever the sheriff of the court decides. But if you owe somebody money and he's got to deliver a summons to you, you can ignore him up to the point where he says, "I'm sorry, now we just break the door down," because it's totally within his right to do it.
Okay.
And that's exactly the same with secession and the Declaration of Independence.
Mm.
Does it make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's obviously a very complicated situation because now you've got a lot of them living sort of in between you. Let's say I do something that goes against their law. We don't recognize them. They don't recognize us. I mean, what happens? Civil war?
Richard, it's not complicated. It's actually very easy. Once you have seceded, you've seceded in terms of the legal process that you followed over that whatever many years that you've done it. And in that process, which we have already made very, very clear, because part of the secession process is you've got to determine and make it clear to the world who is your so-called group of people. And in our case, we've made very clear who our group of people is. And in terms of the ANC laws, we will use exactly their laws to then say, in our new independent sovereign country, the illegals must leave the country. When you go illegally to a country like England, for instance, they don't beg you to leave the country. They take you, if necessary, by force and put you on a plane to go back. Simple. If there are illegal aliens in this country, which there will be, we will ask them. We won't come back. We will ask them if they want to leave. We will physically take them and send them to their own country. Simple. People don't like to hear this. That's a reality. That is the naked truth.
I fully agree with that. And obviously there are plans for the kind of manpower necessary for this.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm armed, by the way.
Then you part the plan.
Oh, Richard, you weren't expecting this one. Okay, listen,
No,
guys, I'm
sort of.
Richard is holding the floor here. If anybody would like to join in the conversation, please put your hand up and we'll add you. But in the meantime, Richard, go for it if you've got anything else.
Yeah, I can go on all night. Another thing was going back to the sort of principles that the ULA stands for. Another point there was death penalty if someone is treasonous. Yeah, that becomes subjective again. Aren't we being treasonous right now in a way?
Not even close. Because treason falls, by the way, under the Geneva Convention. And even under, this is very interesting that you asked that. Under the Geneva Convention, if you are treasonous towards who? Your people, the country. Then funny enough, they've got no problem for the death sentence for treason. But they've got the problem for death sentence against somebody murdering another one. I just do not have the mental capacity or the intellectual capacity to understand that one. I don't. Because if I murder somebody, I murder one person. If I'm treasonous against my country and my people, I put the lives of millions of people in jeopardy.
Okay, fair enough. I suppose it depends what the act of treason would be, or
Treason is described under the Geneva Convention, and I'm not sure. I think even under the what is that? What is the other one? Helsinki Agreement, very clearly. So that is not something that's made up by a couple of people. These are old international laws that are looked at. It's not a country with a dictatorship where an individual decides, like in North Korea, I'm going to shoot people with a cannon because I don't like them, or this person might do something wrong. Let's just kill them. At the end of the day, you've still got a judiciary with the legal process still being on top of everything. That's the way a republic should work in any case. Supposed to work. We're supposed to be a republic. We are very far from a republic in this country. There is no freedom in South Africa.
There's no freedom just about anywhere at the moment.
Well, at the moment, nowhere in the world. And this is part of the reason why I say, when are people going to open their eyes to realize we are all in this world? But I can't talk for not even our neighbors, forget about the rest of the world. But we are all in a death trap. Let's get out with sane people and sort this problem out as quickly as possible. Luckily for us, we've started this legal process many years ago.
Okay. Then the next question would be, there was something else.
So, Richard, while you're having a look there, thank you very much for all the points you're bringing up. You've obviously had a look through the website and done some research on what you're doing now. Let's say we have seceded. It's in the something that's already happened. It's a reality for us. What in your mind, from everything that you've taken in from your reading and your discussions this evening, what is the thing that's going to be the most exciting for you about a sovereign, independent country that works on independent, self-determined states and communities, and all the freedom that one could wish for? What would be the most exciting part for you?
Being able to sleep peacefully at night and not worry about what am I going to do next year with my kids. Can I even send them to school? Can I work? Am I going to get fired for things I don't agree with? Just being able to actually sleep at night. That would definitely be a start.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very
currently,
good answer.
I've made a lot of good decisions in my life, and I find myself at a point now where I've got a good property, and I can almost retire at a fairly young age. I'm 32. I'm like afraid everything is almost for nothing. I'm going to end up back at zero if things carry on the way they are now, and I got to sort of start all over again.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it's heading. Are you in the Cape?
I am in East
London. Or where do you stay? You're in East London. Okay, okay. I'll hop and a skip. All right, nice.
Sell everything and I'm there.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Of course, the question is, what are you going to sell it for in this economy?
Yeah, I suppose you'd have to sell it and have the foresight to put it on the market before everything goes to hell.
Yeah.
Obviously, at some point, the value of property is gonna take a dive.
For sure.
Oh yes, if I can get back, I remembered my other question I had. Forced military conscription. That's definitely not libertarian. I'm sort of more in line with the US's approach on their military. What's your full stance on that?
Richard, very simple. America's got 330 million people. 330 million. we will be a total in the beginning of, well, somewhere in the region of 12 to 15 million. That's, I think about what? If I do a quick calculation in the region of, what, 5%? Our borders are, in terms of total length compared to America's borders, I would say close on half, but call it a third if you want to, which means 30%, 5% doesn't add up. The reality is, let's go back to, and I wanted to mention this earlier, but I didn't. So let me get to it now. There's a big problem in South Africa, a massive problem, and that is the attitude of our own people as well. Because our government, I don't know many people that has got respect for our government. The moment that you don't have respect for your government, most people also don't have respect for the laws of that country. So what is the problem? Where's the problem that I'm talking about? I'm talking about the fact that people are raising their children unknowingly without respect for the police. I don't blame them. Without respect for the army, I don't blame them. Without respect for the government, I don't blame them. But also for no respect for the law, I also don't blame them. But I do blame them that they don't have the foresight to realize that they are raising a generation of problem people. How do you get that right? Right, now let's get back to the military. Will you make it right by sending them to an army? No. But you will definitely help. There's no question about it. But let's get back to the 5% compared to the 330 million of America. I was in the army. I've got no problem. In fact, I'm very proud that I was in the army. Did it do me any harm? No, not at all. And I was in one of the most difficult units in South Africa. Infantry School, Oudtshoorn. If you know anything about the army, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We didn't do basic like the other camps. The total period for basics was 3 months, but practically, physically, they only chopped off for about less than 2 months. We did a course for a whole year. So nobody can tell me anything about the bad side, in inverted commas, of the army. No, I didn't die. In fact, I think it made me a better person. There's no question about that. But in terms of protecting that what we fought for, we, the country, must supply the people to do it. That includes the young girls that come out of school, because there's a massive amount of administration tasks as well. Why were people so-called, when I was in the army, conscientious objectors? Why? I'll tell you one reason, very simple. Because they were politically driven by people like the Helen Zillers of the world. She was one. In fact, she was one that actually started the group Conscientious Objectors. Why? Because it was one way of going against the government. There are certain things you said earlier. The government shouldn't have any rules and regulations. Well, that's only in La La Land, because with all respect, I don't even think in heaven you can do whatever you want to. There are certain things on this earth that must be done. And in this case, it's to protect the borders of this country. And nobody will die by giving, for instance, a year of their lives to protect the people living in that country. Because later, when they are 30, 40, 50, 60, 90 years old, there will be other children that protect them. So to me, with all respect, Richard, that's not even a discussion.
If I can just add to that, Peter has just reminded me on the sideline here that yes, there will obviously be military conscription for boys and girls, but people who prefer not to be in the combat kind of field, who don't want to, go out shooting people or walking patrol on borders or whatever. There are so many other things they can do during that 1 year or 2 year or whatever it is that will be the military conscription. They can follow careers. They can build their own careers in research, in IT technology, for example, medicine, and so on. While they are doing their military conscription, in inverted commas, they will be building a career for themselves that they can follow once they leave the military. Is that
Brett,
also
you're absolutely
in
right,
line?
but we also must not forget, remember, we are only products of experience in life. And all of us look at life through the eyes of what we've experienced. Remember, our experience is that when we did military service, there was a war going on. We're not going to have a war going on. So it's literally only, like you said, patrolling the border. So we've got to get away from this thinking of you'll have a gun to go into combat. It's protecting the border. You don't have to shoot somebody that comes over a border. You arrest them. In fact, I think you're going to have quite a lot of problems if you do shoot somebody coming over a border.
Have you given any consideration to just making it very worthwhile to join the military?
Yes.
With a lot of incentive, and then you don't have to force anyone to do anything. I'm very wary of too much authoritarian government. Saying something's not up for discussion at all, kind of thing, is a little bit concerning.
Richard,
I mean, it's all good and well. I'm the one making the rules.
With all your talk so far, you don't want any laws. Well, that, as I said earlier, that is nowhere in life it works like that. Brett said it very correctly, that because that is part of it, and I didn't mention it, that is part of the idea, is that people can further their, call it careers, or start off with their careers in the army. But with all respect, it's not authoritarian. It is still a government. It is still the safety of millions of people that government, not the individuals, that government is responsible for. So if you don't like it, that you've got to do army training, then my reaction to that is tough luck, because there are millions of people that must be kept safe. We are sitting today with approximately 20 million illegal immigrants in this country that, by the way, can get free medical treatment. Who pays for that? The government? No, not the government. The taxpayer. Who's the taxpayer in South Africa? Approximately 4.8% of the legal population pays 92% of the taxes in this government. So even from a financial point of view, you are protecting your people. Sorry. I don't like to go to the army because that's too authoritarian of you to say that I've got to go. Well, tough luck, you're going to go. Does it make sense?
Chucky has unmuted himself. I think he wants to make some contribution. Good evening, Chucky.
Hi, good evening, guys. Hi, Richard, I just want to give you a little bit of insight as to why military service is actually quite good. You're still on the young side, so you wouldn't really understand. I myself also did military service. And when I left the army and I actually went into the working world, what the army taught me was it taught me discipline, it taught me punctuality, it taught me respect for elders. But more important than that, it actually taught me how to think for myself. Now, when I was working for a specific company, it was my task to employ people for the company because I was in a management position. And what I found is the difference between people that had done military service and people that had not done military service. There was a huge difference in attitude, number one, and in self-ability, if I can put it that way, if that kind of makes sense. The people that had done military service didn't have to be spoon-fed. Guys that had not gone to the military, and I did find a few that were able to will work on their own and be able to think out of the box because of the way they were brought up. But unfortunately, in this day and age, if you look at how parents are bringing up their children today, there is no discipline, there's no respect, there's no ability for them to think past their noses, and everything that is on social media is what they believe. And they are so quick to go to Google and say, well, Google said that's how it is, so that's how it is. And that's not always the case. So military service does an enormous amount of good for the young generation coming up into the world to take over from older people. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit more insight. Sorry if I've deviated off the topic. I just wanted to emphasize how important military service actually is.
I don't disagree with anything that you said, and I didn't disagree with it before I said what I said. That definitely would be the case. It's just the idea of forcing people to do stuff, I think, should be open for discussion and should just be very carefully thought out. Because maybe there could be other ways of going about getting a strong military. Incentivizing people to do it. I'm sure most guys that finish school would voluntarily sign up for it. In any case, especially if it's if they have enough incentive to do so.
Richard, so you basically, what you're saying is that only the people that has got approximately a third of the border size of America, with a fifth of the population, only the people that volunteer to go must go and protect the others that just don't want to go. Because it's actually easier and nicer to sit at home and play computer games while somebody else is protecting them. No, sorry, that won't go with any person that actually start thinking about it. So I'm sorry. That argument that you are using there is 100% wrong, not 99%, 100%. Again, you're coming back to forcing. Tell me, what speed do you drive on the highways? Always 120 kilometers per hour, or do you drive sometimes a bit faster?
I drive sometimes faster.
So what you're saying is that sometimes you don't listen to the government, but the rest of the times you are forced to drive slower. So why do you listen to the government? They're forcing you to drive only 120. Your arguments doesn't make sense. Richard, I don't want to sound funny about this, but you're living in La La Land. Reality is that there are certain duties of a government that must be done. The security of its economy, of its borders, of its people is of utmost importance. Done. There's no question about it. If you don't like it, tough luck. That's life.
Guys, we've gone over an hour now, and it's been very, very enlightening. I want to say thank you so much to Richard. If you've got one more question, Richard, no problem, or anybody else on the group on the call this evening, we'll allow one more question, and then we need to let Hein go about his things. Are you happy, Richard?
Yeah, I'm done now. Hopefully someone answers the question.
Well, it doesn't seem that way, but listen, we are here, remember, and we'll keep reminding people every Tuesday evening at 7:30. We've got Hein committed to come and talk the naked truth here on the ULA Liberty channel. So let's hope everybody joins us again next week and bring a couple of people along to join us. I'm going to post the recording on the Liberty channel as well as soon as we're done here. So you're very welcome to go and have a listen to that and send it along to your friends. Hein, thanks very much for being with us this evening. Much appreciated. It's always enlightening to listen to you talking. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity again to make it very clear to everybody. Also to Richard, I like to have people that actually view their views. But as much as I'm open to listen to views, there's no sense in me listening, and I'm not saying you're doing it, I'm talking about in general, Richard, if that other person is not prepared to listen and change their views. We've got to accept and acknowledge and understand that experience with age, sometimes, or perhaps 100% of the times, do play a role. We've got to understand that we're not busy with an idea here. We are busy trying to get freedom, genuine freedom for everybody. So unfortunately, life is not always a bed of roses. Life is not always the way we as individuals see it, but we've got to understand and see the bigger picture. Because the bigger picture means some people will be unhappy for whatever reason it is, and some people will actually see why everything is done in life, understand and support it. So, Brett, again, thank you very much from my side that you do this.
Sorry, would you mind taking one more question or comment before you go?
No problem.
No, is that fine? Okay. Vernon, I've added you to the channel. Welcome. Good evening.
No, how's it? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, right. I'm phoning you. I'm speaking from Joburg. From the English part of Randburg, it's called Ront Borough. So
you're probably my neighbor.
We settled with the age-old South African problem. You know, it used to be, excuse the word, a Dutchman thing, but now it's become a South African white thing.
Yeah.
We are doing too well here. Nobody is battling enough. You know, I don't understand why not everybody has joined ULA yet. They're waiting for the paw to strike the fan first. Instead of preempting this stuff, I don't get it. This is the typical South African thing, eh?
Yeah. Vernon, yeah, you are so 100% correct. In fact, so much so that I've said many times, and Peter and Johan and Sean and the other people that are on here that have, Lawrence, people have heard this, Ina, Joyce, most of them have all heard what I've said. It's still not bad enough. But people, just wait. When the paw hits the fan, it won't be running because the electricity will go off, but at least then our people will wake up, stand up, and stand together. Sad, but that's unfortunately, I think, a great truth, because that's exactly what you said.
Well, you know, the one solution at the end of the day, if the paw explodes, I can see us going the UDI route.
Well, I can tell you now, I've said it many times. We will go the UDI route quite simply because the blatant arrogance of this ANC government will force us to do that. I know, because we've been dealing with them, or trying to deal with them, for how many years. So I know what I'm talking about in terms of this. The nice thing about that is, well, the bad thing about that is that we won't have this total smooth transition. But the good thing about that is that then at least we know Now we do have it immediately.
Well, my personal opinion that even if it's done legally with the secession movement, the paupers are going to hit the fan northwards. But they can come this time because it's going to be a different scenario. You know, when you're in your own country fighting for it, it's totally a different story. And I think it's going to happen. Unfortunately, it's going to happen that way. My personal opinion.
Yeah, Vernon, let me just make it clear if I didn't misunderstand you. Remember, a UDI done with the legal basis of the secession process for the last how many years is still a 100% legal process. It's still, in terms of international law, totally within the law, totally legal.
Just to change the subject for a minute there, I have sometime, if I can speak to you and Brett personally, I don't know if I should go public with this. Excuse me. The reason for the Xhosa presence in the Transkei is actually quite an interesting story, and my father and grandfather were actually the perpetrators of that. Why? There were no Xhosas there in 1950 and 1949.
Yeah, but then you've got to understand you are public now, so be careful.
You must let me. I must actually get hold of you on your site and make an appointment and a date with you and Brett and have this conversation. It's extremely interesting.
Yeah, more than welcome. Vernon, the reality of where we are at the moment is that more and more and more, and I mean, you mentioned it, and I just had to smile because I've been fighting for this since day one that I started this process, where a lot of people have still got this whole idea of Afrikaans, NG Kerk, what else is there? Kortbroek, Communicose, that kind of attitude. That into the mix as well. That's nonsense. We've long past that stage, but there are still individuals that hang on to that ridiculous idea. We, as white minorities, and living in Johannesburg, you perhaps won't appreciate it, but if you really realize how seriously dire the situation of the colors of the Cape is, serious. It's very serious. We passed that stage. We've got the idea that we can even say that you are English, you are Jewish, you are Afrikaans, you are Boer, you are Portuguese. We passed that stage. I said it in an interview. I think it was in November or somewhere, where I said, remember one thing with the people, it's the fact. Even the blacks that votes the ANC into government will be on the same Titanic that we will be on. We are all in the same problem. For us, at least we've got a solution on the table. That's what the ULA is doing. The sad thing is, the black communities that are supporting this ANC and supporting it, not my problem, but there's no solution for them. Nothing. So, at least with the boats to get away from the Titanic, they'll sink with it.
Well, a couple of lifeboats have been thrown out now. Luckily, I think it's also a temporary thing with the last municipal elections and stuff here. Fortunately, the whole of Gauteng has gone DA action sort of way, except for Vereniging van der Bijl, who needs it the most, by the way. And it's a temporary reprieve. It's not going to be forever. But we all dying to see what's going to happen. Pothole repairs and robots working and, the normal arguments that we have. But we're going to see what happens. We haven't seen any results yet.
What people don't understand is that in order for the ANC government Now, that includes local or municipal governments. In order for them to steal as hugely, as massively as they are doing, they can't do it on their own. They do it with, in this case, with municipal elections, with the municipal staff. Now, the sad thing is, that same staff is still in office. So,
Well, you know what's
will this
amazing?
corruption stop? And my answer to you is no, it won't.
One of Mashaba's things that I agree with, which is actually his policy is to get away from the small business. They want to employ workers in the municipality, no longer outsourcing, which is the outsourcing has been the source of the problems nationwide.
Well, it's part. Well, put it this way: it's part of the problem, because the municipality can't do everything themselves. That's impossible. They can't have their own road department. They can't have they can't have everything themselves, because a lot of municipalities just don't have the capital to do it or the cash flow to do it.
I remember years back, Joburg municipality had their own roads department, and they were. You can ask people when a robot stopped working, it was fixed in half an hour. Now it takes 2 weeks.
You're talking about specific, yes, with that kind of stuff, I totally agree with you. There they've got all contractors that come in. The reason why they do that is quite simple, because that's where a big part of the corruption goes on. But the biggest part of the corruption is actually the big, massive jobs that they can't do themselves. There is,
that's
and
the problem,
I don't think anybody's got a figure, but my personal opinion is, I don't think that there can't be more than 1 or 2% of each and every tender that goes out, that there's not corruption involved.
Of course there is. But in the old days, the Joburg municipality had their own road maintenance unit, which is we're not talking about building new roads, we're talking about maintenance.
Well,
they had their own maintenance units, and they had trucks, and they had tar laying lorries. There was no tenders put out for those kind of things. They did it themselves. But of course, all that stuff has broken down and been stolen or sold. Even the fire department, 1 out of 10 fire engines working.
Yeah, then you've also got to understand, then the mayor didn't earn 1.5 and 2 million rands per year. The people that was elected didn't earn also in the region of 1.2 million rand per year.
I don't think the mayor was paid at all, was he?
No, he wasn't paid at all. They only got the direct expenses for meetings paid. That's all.
There was no salary paid. I remember that.
That was the Joburg mayor, which I know personally quite well. Ernie is, I'm not sure. I think Ernie is about 84 years old now. He's just laughing at this. Sadly laughing at it, because it's a joke. Because
nobody was paid.
No. Nobody got paid. There was no money involved. Nothing.
No councillor
direct expenses.
The Joburg ward councillor is now getting paid something. I think it's 46,000 rand a month for a ward councillor.
Okay, Vernon, that's clearly not going to happen in our new country. And we've got Dr. Sean Stewart on the line, who's put up his hand. Dr. Sean, good evening.
Hey, is that Sean Stewart? How's it, Sean? How are you going? Good?
Very well in yourself, Vernon. I was hearing you chatting, and I know your story about your father's racketeering. So we'll leave that alone off the public arena.
I'm going to have to.
I'm not saying anything. I just was here for ears tonight. That's all.
No, that's why I sort of stopped short of going further. I'll talk to Hein about it, and Brett and yourself. We'll get together one evening and tell everybody the actual reasons why we've got that problem there. And unfortunately, my family was 90% the cause of that problem.
Yeah, well, keep that on the down low now, right? So let's move on
for now. But it sounds like a fascinating story. Again, everybody, thank you very much for being here this evening. Hein Marks talking the naked truth. Thank you very much for joining us. And to everybody, have a great evening and join us again next week on Tuesday at 7:30 for The Naked Truth. Good night, everybody.
100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. All right. Bye.
Thank you, Brett.